Right, Nicole. I mean, that was one of the things that struck me as well, is we still, you know, I wasn't sure if they were afraid of Donald Trump hearing them say he lost, even though they're calling him the former president. They keep saying he's I think they go back and forth between 45th president and former president, but they can't say it out loud. Republicans still are afraid to say out loud that Donald Trump lost the election. That level of terrorism, I guess, I've never seen anything like it in politics. Brian, I don't know if you have. Nicole, I don't know if you have, but I sure haven't. It's weird.
It's weird.
No, weird.
That's why it's all yours.
Over to you, my friend.
My turn to deal with the weird now. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate all of you so much. All right, my friends, and thank you all for being here. Good evening. And woo, yes, indeed, we do begin the readout tonight with Donald Trump's second impeachment defense, which, frankly, I mean, it wasn't a defense, okay? I don't know if you watched it, but in case you missed it, let me just sum it up for you. Just think Fox News primetime cold open, or OANN or Newsmax. It was literally a right-wing TV show. And perhaps most importantly, the kind of right-wing TV show that the Republican senators probably have on in their offices right now and at home, and that Republican base voters mainline day and night. Trump's lawyers didn't even attempt to put up a defense for his inciting the January 6th insurrection. Just take in this little sample for just a second.
The article of impeachment now before the Senate is an unjust and blatantly unconstitutional act of political vengeance.
We would like to discuss the hatred, the vitriol, the political opportunism that has brought us here today.
It has become very clear that the House Democrats hate Donald Trump.
Politics changes things. It has interposed the element of hatred.
So the tactic of the Trump defense, which was supposed to be a defense of the claim, was instead to try to claim that really there was no insurrection. That didn't even happen. They accused the House managers of manipulating video as evidence, manipulating the video that you saw them show in their presentation and tweets when they were making their case. But they offered no evidence of that manipulation. And then they themselves used Trump's tweets deceptively. They even tried to blame Antifa, really, for the January 6th insurrection. Seriously. And they even relitigated Trump saying the neo-Nazis who marched in Charlottesville included very fine people. They did that as well. But the chef's kiss of this just bizarro defense was this video, which they ran over and over and over with out-of-context clips of Democrats daring to use the word fight in varying random contexts, as if that is the equivalent of Trump summoning a lynch mob to invade the Capitol to hang Mike Pence and hunt down Speaker Pelosi. And, of course, they ran an extended right-wing media-style attack video against Black Lives Matter because, of course, you got to attack Black Lives Matter or it's just not Republicanism. And you will not be surprised that most of the villains that they chose for their little rants were black, brown, Jewish people, and women.
It is about Democrats trying to disqualify their political opposition. One of the first people arrested was the leader of Antifa. This is not whataboutism. It is constitutional cancel culture.
You, along with your allies in the media, attempted to cancel and censor members of this chamber.
Let us be clear. This trial is about far more than President Trump. It is about canceling 75 million Trump voters and criminalizing political viewpoints. It asks for constitutional cancel culture to take over in the United States Senate.
Okay, I will repeat. This was not a defense. It was basically a 4-hour culture war rant against so-called cancel culture. You even heard them coin the term constitutional cancel culture. It was literally just a blizzard of lies, conspiracy theories, whataboutism, and frankly, BS. It was a stand-in for a Trump tweet storm, which, of course, he can no longer do because Twitter banned him. In a word, wow. I'm joined now by Elie Mystal, justice correspondent for The Nation, Neil Katyal, former acting solicitor general, Midwin Charles, civil trial and criminal defense attorney, and Dean Obeidallah, host of the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM and a columnist for MSNBC Daily. And you guys might not know this, he's not just funny, he's also a lawyer. So I'm just going to let all of these people go through one by one. I'll start with you, Elie. You're a defense lawyer. Did you hear a defense today?
Yeah, I did. I heard, I'm just a caveman. I was unfrozen by your scientists. I think facts are made up, full cloth, and trying to cancel Republicans. Like, It was one of the more pathetic things I've ever seen in my life. They actually admitted to the crime. I mean, his lawyers admitted that the violence was foreseeable, which is a key element in the crime that Trump stands accused of. They repeatedly suggested that Trump should just be indicted by the criminal justice system, which is not something you often hear from a defense attorney. And then at the key point, when they were asked by Murkowski and Collins, two Republicans, what did the president know and when did the president know it? They acted like the mere question was an anathema, like they couldn't just call up, like they never called up their client and asked him, when did you know that the riot was happening? They acted like that was information that we do not have available, when in fact we do have it available. And while I was on hold, Tommy Tuberville confirmed that he told Trump directly that Pence was being secured before Trump sent the 224 tweet again attacking Mike Pence. So that's the whole case, and they didn't do anything to defend the guy from the actual charges.
You know, and you know, Midwin, I thought Stacey Plaskett beautifully laid out the fact that, I mean, I definitely felt like I was watching a cold open on, like, Hannity's show or something, or the other guy with the bow tie, but he used to have a bow tie. Like, that's what I thought I was watching, because it just was a rant against black people, brown people, mouthy women. Why are these women, why are they so mean? Look at Elizabeth Warren. She says the word fight. Like, it was literally just a rant against all the outgroups that Fox News spends all day going off on. That's all I heard today.
Yeah, this is what we call when lawyers have a horrible case, they just throw everything against the wall and see what sticks, right? It was misleading, it was disorganized, and it was not helpful to their client for the exact same reasons that Ellie laid out. I was actually confused watching it. I couldn't quite figure out if they were defending Trump or whether or not they were trying to help prosecute Trump. Because what they did is they played video that was actually hurtful to Trump, to play video and show text messages and show that he knew that this was going to happen, and yet he did not temper his words. He did not try to secure the building. He did not bring in troops in advance is damning in and of itself. And the fact that his attorneys could not answer that penultimate question about what did he do once he found out that the Capitol was breached, I think is just disqualifying. His attorneys should have at that point said the defense rests, because it was over. It was particularly over at that point, because all they needed to do was pick up the phone and call their client and find out from their client, listen, when did you find out the Capitol was breached? When did you send reinforcements? Two very simple questions. And the prosecutors, the House managers, are not required to set forth that evidence, because this isn't a case about whether or not he properly secured the building. This is a case about insurrection and whether or not his acts were an abuse of power and a violation of his oath. That's what this is about. So this whole First Amendment thing, by the way, is a complete red herring.
Yeah, and it's moot. It's moot because that was already voted on. That's over. Neil Katyal, I was struck by Bernie Sanders, I thought, asked a really smart question. First, he asked the House managers, you know, what did Donald Trump do, as we were just discussing, when the insurrection broke out? And what did he do, you know, what did he do regarding when he found out Mike Pence was in trouble? And then he asked the same question of Trump's lawyers. I was struck by the fact that they didn't seem to know what Trump was doing. They didn't seem to have any information about what Trump was doing. And yet they actually contradicted Tommy Tuberville, who's already on the record saying he called Trump and said they had to evacuate Pence. I think this is that moment. There's another one. That was the Bernie Sanders version of it. But here's Mr. Vanderveen, Michael Vanderveen. This is cut two. This is the question. This was Collins and Murkowski also tried to ask, what did the president know and when did he know it? And here was the answer.
The House managers have given us absolutely the other onto that question. We're able to piece together a timeline, and it goes all the way back to December 31st, January 2nd. There is a lot of interaction between the authorities and getting folks to have security beforehand. On the day, we have a tweet at 2:38, so it was certainly sometime before then. With the rush to bring this impeachment, there's been absolutely no investigation into that.
So here's the thing, Neil. they're saying that the House manager should have investigated where Trump was, but couldn't they just ask Trump? He's their client.
You're 100% right. And you started by saying what we heard wasn't a defense. It wasn't. I'd say it was just an embarrassment. And, you know, I think your viewers don't have the full context of what that long clip was. But it was started with Senator Collins and Murkowski saying, very precise question, on January 6th, when did Trump learn about the breach on the Capitol? What did he do about it, and when? And then you heard that rambling answer about December 29th and so on. You know, I agree with what Ellie and others have said. You know, if I'm Trump's lawyer and I'm interviewing him to be his lawyer, the first thing I'm going to ask him is those Murkowski-Collins questions. The fact they couldn't answer it was very striking. And then, as you were saying, the stuff that the lawyers did answer was even worse, because they, you know, Mitt Romney asked, you know, when did Trump know that Vice President Pence was under attack? The lawyer said Trump never knew. And as you were saying, that's contradicted by Senator Tuberville, and it just seems patently wrong. The idea that the Secret Service would not have told the President of the United States that the Vice President was under attack, that is preposterous. And here's the thing. I think Trump's lawyer, it looks like he lied in this hearing. And we need to get to the bottom of it. I know folks want to have a vote tomorrow, but you can't lie about something like Secret Service dropping their duties on the job. And, you know, Trump, this is his MO. He banks on the idea that Pence is not going to come forward or anyone against him is not going to come forward. They're too scared. And the Secret Service couldn't come forward for the last 4 years, but they darn well can tonight. They don't work for Donald Trump, and he should not get away with it. He shouldn't blame the Secret Service for what he did.
Yeah, well, he's just following his friend Lindsey Graham, who blamed the cops. You know, Dean, the other big lie that we heard tonight, which I don't understand how that does not trigger some sort of ethics implications here. They claim that the video that Democrats showed in their presentation was doctored. They offered no evidence. They just said it was doctored. I don't. That seems to me to be incredibly. This is surveillance video that they got from the Capitol, presumably from the Capitol Police.
I want to tell you that was stunning. It also seemed like the Trump lawyers didn't know there were going to be questions. They're like, we didn't know there was questions on this. This is ridiculous. It was like bad improv. It really was like bad improv. Like, please, a suggestion. And then, I mean, the one attorney was angry at the House managers for not giving him the answers. Like, look, I don't know the answer because they didn't tell me the answer. In their defense, they probably know they're not getting paid by Trump anyway. They're like, look, we're going to wing it. We'll do the best we can. It was stunning. There was no defense. Their only defense, I think, honestly, as a lawyer looking at it, is to defend Trump against being convicted in front of a rigged jury. Like, when I was a trial lawyer, if I knew the jury was rigged, I would have only spoken for 3 hours out of the 16 I was allotted. And I would have answered questions very succinctly. I think they're getting paid by the word by Donald Trump at this point. And so that's the way they did it. But they did not try to rehabilitate Donald Trump's reputation from what America has seen over the last 3 days. It was stunning. And one last point, Joy, you mentioned the video showing a lot of black women and brown people. In the first day, they showed so many Muslims. They showed Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib. They showed Keith Ellison, who's been out of Congress since 2018. But because he's black Muslim, I'm not kidding, he's been out of Congress since 2018. They had him in the montage because a black Muslim man is scary, and it plays great on Fox News later. So this was an audition for Fox News or Newsmax, whatever it was. And what is so sad, and the last point, the whataboutism. This was a terrorist attack. There was no two sides to 9/11. There were not two sides to Oklahoma City bombing. There are not two sides to this attack. And over 200 people are arrested, but the mastermind of that attack is walking freely. That's going to make people really question our criminal justice system going forward, when the mastermind, it'd be like bin Laden walking free after the 9/11 terrorist attack and no one going after him and not condemning him. That's stunning to me.
Yeah. It's a reason that they call the group Al-Qaeda, because that's the equivalency. And Ellie, you wrote a piece in The Nation that I thought was spot on. The problem is that the jury is full of co-conspirators. They'd have to, as you said, convict themselves of this crime to vote guilty.
The people like Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz did everything that Trump did except for try to kill Mike Pence. That was Graham's line, but everything else, all of the other incitement. In the first day, the House managers brought up the video of them trying to run the Biden-Harris bus off the road, and they talked about how Trump encouraged that as part of his general incitement. You know who else encouraged that? Marco Rubio. who gave a rally in Miami saying, did you see what they did in Texas? We love that, right? So how can Marco Rubio now turn it around and hold Trump accountable for the same actions Marco Rubio himself took? That's actually the conundrum that the Republicans are in. To convict Trump for doing what he did, they have to be able to look inside themselves and admit their own errors and their own mistake and their own culpability in this tragedy. And Republicans react to self-reflection like my children react to Brussels sprouts, right? They just they just won't do it.
Yeah.
So then, Neil, what is the outcome here? Because if Trump is acquitted, then what?
Well, there are two possibilities. The House and Senate could use the 14th Amendment to try and bar Trump from running again. That would require majority votes in both and possibly a court proceeding. So it's one option. The other is Trump is looking very seriously at a number of different criminal investigations in Georgia, in New York, and possibly a federal one. And indeed, as Elliot was saying, Trump's lawyers are begging for this. They're the ones who are saying, like, well, he hasn't been indicted, so therefore he can't be impeached. All right, well, be careful what you wish for. The other thing I'd say,
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
The last thing I'd say about this is just, what about the Republican Party? What is it going to stand for if they can't look in the mirror and condemn this and this behavior? This is what they want to say is okay. I mean, that is the destruction of that party through and through.
But
yeah, and we're going to talk about that next. You actually teed us up perfectly for our next block. I'm sorry, Midwin, quickly.
No, I just was going to say,
well, we're going to come.
They've condoned this all along. So, Trump's love language is violence, and the Republican Party sat by for months, years, and allowed it to happen. So.
We are going to talk about that very thing next. Elie Mystal, Neil Katyal, Midwin Charles, Dean Oberdahl. You guys are all going to come back next because there's going to be a whole lot of legal stuff we're going to still be talking about. Up next on The ReidOut.